From the beginning, the images we have created have stood like mile markers on the road of human progress. What once was is now, because artists made it so. They captured a moment and made it eternal. Where did they get such power? Well, it was given to them, passed down through the ages, master to student, each building upon the other. John Stobart, one of the most accomplished artists of our time, says, "I don't think the greatest works have yet been done." And it's true, but only if the secrets are given to yet another generation. The first secret is this: it is not in the hand, it is in the eye. Follow us and we'll show you that once you learn to look at the world differently, it becomes a different world, one in which nature becomes the greatest teacher of all. It is in Lyme Regis on the southern coast of England that John Stobart demonstrates how individuals put their own personalities into their work. Here, he and watercolorist Bert Wright interpret nature differently.
Wonderful day. It's really brightening up.
Yep.
These young kids here, if any of them are going to be artists, they've got to really establish their own identity in a painting. That's an artist. This is what we're trying to do in this show, is to tell people how an artist has to establish his own identity. That's very, very important, the individualistics.
Yeah, I quite agree, but the best way is to start even as young as this. We're in fact just going out with a sketchbook and pencil or a crayon and just visualizing what is in front of them and actually translating that, their own personal feelings, onto that bit of paper really is where the beginning it really is.
A good example of that is going to be for us to go right here and both of us to paint a picture, and we'll see how we come out. Both of ours will be different. You paint one way, I paint another.
That's right.
And that's what it's all about.
Yep, and we'll even try a different technique. You'll be painting in oils and I'll do a watercolor. Right. So we can now try not only a different artist perspective, but just how it looks in two different mediums as well.
Well, it's good to be back here in England, and it's very nice of you to have suggested this terrific spot, Bert. This is really good.
No, well, I thought we'd come to one of the oldest harbours in England, and what you're in now is a 14th century harbour on the south coast of England. It's an ideal painter's paradise, and still is as it was in its original shape. And eventually you'll be able to see the old town in the background of Lyme Regis, very famous old town. I think we're closing up on it right now. So if we look across to our left and see the town in the distance and the fishing huts on the right, I would say we're about in the right location. What do you think, John?
That bit there, right there. And what I like about this is the little staircase on the right. I like that very much.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the staircase sort of resolves the right-hand side for me. Yep. And funnily enough, there's another staircase on the left-hand side, and those will sort of tie in a bit.
That's right. Now we've got the ideal framing here from where you start off on your staircase, and then the buildings going to a nice perspective angle, taking you right down through that harbour, right into the distance, through the harbour mouth, into the town.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go, making a start. I think what I'm going to do, John, I know we're using different techniques. I'm just going to start with a little pencil sketch first, which I sometimes do, but it's maybe the best thing for anyone starting with watercolour, just to get it lined in pencil first.
First of all, I want to see if the whole thing fits on the canvas, which will go from there to there. I'm just now deciding exactly the position of the houses along the quay, and exactly where that mast is going to be, which I like about there. I want that about there. Got a lovely perspective thing here. This line is pointing right at the town in the distance, so is this line here. The tide will be out, so I'm pulling that up there. The stairs are going to be here. Lovely. Lead into the painting. You can walk down here, walk up the steps, walk along there. Exactly what I like. I like to feel that I'm walking around the painting. Bert, do you think we'll be able to get through to the young artists of today somehow? How this is going to really work for them? They've really been hammered by the changes in art over the recent past.
We've just been going through a phase where the art colleges right across the world, not just in the States, went in for sort of free expression, which was tied in with the whole theme of sort of free education, that, you know, people were should do their own thing, in other words. And I'd agree with that to a certain extent, but like most things in life, art is a discipline, and unless you learn the basic disciplines, then somewhere along the line you're going to come unstuck, and that's been found to be true. But now I'm pleased to say, certainly in England, that the traditional approach is in fact coming back, and there's a more structured approach now to teaching art in most of the art colleges, and even down to, dare I say it, the basic ability to draw.
Absolutely. And now I'm blocking in the sky. But basically, I've got to get the sky going pretty early because I like to work from the distance back to the foreground.
I'm fortunate today because at the stage I want to put the sky, and a nice one has appeared for me in the distance, which is good soft tones. It's got a bit of warmth in it.
It's strange as it may seem, it's the one thing I really miss. Other than pork pies and a few other goodies, kippers, the one thing I miss in America is the wonderful skies. I find amazing, of course, here is, I haven't been here many days, but look at the skies we've seen, and here we've got one building up, a typically English sky with enormous clouds rolling by.
You always think of it as at least fairly static, but it's an ever-changing subject right in front of your eyes. So at the same time you're painting, you've got to memorize the various shapings that are in front of you, picking out the bits that you think are going to help your composition. This all comes with practice. Like most things in life, you won't get it right the first time. You may not get it right the second time or even the 22nd time, but it will be there. With a watercolor painting, you actually work from light to dark, as against the general principle in an oil painting where you work from dark to light. So what you've got to do is get your initial washes in, which are going to establish the tonal values of the lightest part of the painting, first of all, and then actually increase that as you go through the painting, establishing tonally down the scale until you come to the darkest part of the painting, which will be the last part of painting you actually do on a watercolor. Try it the reverse way around on a watercolor, and you'll inevitably end up with a pile of mud on your paper and not a fat lot else.
I'm just now deciding how busy I want the left-hand side of the painting to be. See, what I'm trying to do is to simplify this. It's a very, very busy painting, but I'm going to simplify it. In fact, I'm getting towards exactly what I want with it now.
Again, another point with painting is just think of them initially in terms of tones and not in colours. Tonal values are very important. If you just paint in colour, you'll get all the tones wrong, and the recession that you're looking for in the painting just will not be there. There used to be a famous English artist who, before he started painting, always used a filter, and it was a grey filter, and what he did, he looked at the subject through this filter, and it knocked out all the colours, and what he was looking at was, in fact, a grey subject. And in fact, some of the old masters, going back to oil painting, actually painted in greys. They did a tonal painting first, which was straight black and white, and they only put the colour in at the very last moment, and as an overpaint.
Bert, what about a little lunch? Maybe the great delicacy of all time, fish and chips.
That's the best thing you've said all morning, John. I'll go for that.
I love it. Oh,
This is mine.
wonderful.
5-star luxury, this is.
You know, they used to have it in the wrapped in newspaper, though.
That's right.
And I liked it then. I don't know what it was, the newsprint or the Daily Mirror or whatever it was.
Added flavour. Yeah.
That was wonderful.
The news of the day in your food.
I think a lot of people in America think that being an artist, you got to be starving to death. Well, that's not true at all. I mean, we've been able to pull it off.
I think when we talk about making a living in art, I think fundamentally you've got to boil it down to that you're doing something you enjoy doing. But of course, if you're going to make a living at it, it's got to be something that people enjoy sufficiently to buy it. And if you get the combination of the two working together, which I think fortunately you and I have, then in fact you can have a good, enjoyable life and make a living at it as well.
I think unless an artist is motivated to do it, we can encourage this. We can encourage the artist to do the sort of thing we do, but we can't motivate them. I mean, it's got to come from inside, hasn't it, really?
It has, in a way. I think that what you've got to cultivate is not only the desire to paint, but you've got to develop your sort of powers of observation. You've got to walk around looking at things and actually seeing paintings in what you look at.
You're absolutely right, Bert. What this show is all about is not how to paint, but how to see the world through an artist's eyes. What I've decided on the building is that later on it's going to be much lighter than it is at the moment. And I think I want to keep it fairly dark. And I want the light shining on the road rather than on the front of the building. Because I like the shadow underneath here, which is creating light. That creates a sense of light when you've got to cast shadow. Now what's happening very nicely in this composition is that all the perspective lines of this roof and the tidal line of the pier here are all pointing to this little town in the distance, which I'll put in right at the end. And here, this nice little piece of water goes out of the harbor and into the ocean, and this line, that tends to do that to the composition. And then finally, the two little staircases, one of which is right over here in the distance, boom, 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 right there. That's a little staircase there that I'll emphasize a little more than that. And this little staircase here are nice little framing points. Although you're not conscious of it when you look at this, those are important things in the composition. How are you doing, Bert?
Yeah, well, we're both going fine, John. I'm just looking across at yours, and it's interesting that you've closed in on your perspective and shown around the half of the building that's in front of us. And I, for whatever reason, decided to show the whole building, and the truth is that both situations actually work.
They do, don't
And this is what's interesting. When an artist looks at a subject, the first thing he's got to decide on at what point he's going to frame it. And in other words, where he's going to begin and end, left and right and top and bottom. And John, in this instance, has decided to go closer into the subject than I have. But they're both going to work, actually.
The very thing that you've just been saying is what we've been trying to get across in some of our shows, which is this whole business of the individuality of styles, which one artist sees something completely different from another. And if you copy photographs all the time, of course this is completely lost. After all, if you and I sat down in front of a photograph and both painted it, we'd produce pretty much the same thing. And we'd lose the very thing that is our most important asset, which is the way we do things that are different from everybody else, yeah. Each of us.
Absolutely true. There's another important factor if you're interested in, you know, producing something that looks like what nature intended, was that you can usually tell when people have painted from a photograph, because a photograph tends to actually darken shadows far more than the human eye. And a photograph will read as a very dark, almost black situation, and when people come to paint that, they inevitably paint either a very dark grey or a black area. When in truth, if you're out there, it wasn't that at all. I mean, it was full of colour and life. And I'm afraid that when you are a professional artist, I mean, I've got to say that 9 times out of 10, I can tell when a painting has been produced from a photograph.
Now we're in trouble.
What?
We've got an extra...
You've got an extra boat coming in.
Little boat, which is actually a lovely boat. Much nicer than the one we had before. Now we're in trouble. This is what happens with outdoor painting, Bert.
Yeah, right.
Another boat suddenly arrives, and then you have another option whether to put it in or leave it out.
And that's another lesson. Sometimes, you know, people will paint a sky and halfway through see the most magnificent sky and think, well, boy, I've got to get that one down. It is a fatal mistake, because you're never going to achieve it.
I was thinking of putting that boat in
The
here.
blue one.
Yeah, but it just left. So that's what an artist's got to worry about, you know, all those sort of
Will the
things.
article move before you finished?
Yeah. Those are little things that we have to be concerned with. Now, I'm anticipating that the tide will go right out. I've always been attracted to boats that sit on the floor of the harbour, and as this tide is going out, this boat is getting nearer and nearer to being landlocked. dark sand all the way up to the edge of this staircase there. That's looking really good. And now I'm going to put some light bits over that later, and also the darker bits that come all the way down from this other boat, which I'm going to do next. I think painting these boats comes with a lot of experience at drawing the boats, because they've all got a unique shape. This is where drawing comes in. Drawing has to be absolutely accurate at that point. That little stroke that I just did then resolved that edge of the hull nicely. Now this edge of this is very, very tricky drawing right here. It's got to be just right. I'm working with a big brush so that I can keep all these shapes major. Very good. Little orange boat behind it, I think does something for the composition, so we'll keep that in. Seeing these little children here gets me thinking about their future if ever they wanted to be an artist, you know.
Yeah. When you look at those kids, it reminds me when my three were young, and we used to take them on beach holidays just like this.
Yeah.
And we used to have great fun drawing in the sand. We used to clean an area flat, and then I used to get an old stick or a twig, and we used to draw pictures in the sand. And then we used to wait for the tide to come in to wash the paintings away, and it used to be absolutely great, and we did that for years. And then we started, of course, building pictures around sandcastles like all the kids do. And that was where my kids first got into drawing, believe it or not, on the beach. Just like those kids over there.
Oh, Robert.
John, good to see
Oh,
you.
good to see you. Well, this is Robert Taylor, who is well known in the States for your aviation paintings. Robert, it's very good that you came by. You know, Bert and I were just discussing what a great life it is to be an artist, and of course you are a very successful artist. How did you begin? What happened in your particular career?
I think it was a desire to want to paint. I never thought I was going to achieve it, but the desire was inside me, you know, I want to get there. And I was holding down a normal job, and in the evenings I would come home and I would get my paints out. I mean, I was 32 before I became a professional artist. Now, some people might think that is very old.
I'm always saying to young artists, go out and do it, try it. What sort of thing would you tell them? Have you got a message for them at all?
Well, I would say that, but I also add is you know, if you've got the desire in you, then really, you know, keep at it. keep at it. It may seem that you can't see the horizon, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I tell you what, if the desire's there, you'll see that light, and you'll get through that light.
Well, I'm now on the sort of closing stage of this painting. I could keep putting in little bits of information and detail, but basically speaking, it's not really going to help the painting or the composition.
Right. Oh, it's nice to see some younger people here, isn't it, Bert?
It is.
How do you make the water go look like it does?
Well, you start with, you have to imagine what's under the water. I mean, under that water is actually sand. So what I did first of all, I painted a sand colour, yeah? Now, it doesn't look as though it is, but it's there because that colour then comes through. And then whilst that was wet, just like sand is wet, yeah, I then painted the blue into it. So now you've got a blue colour with sand colour coming up through it. And then when that was just a little bit dry, the next colour, which is the darker reflections of the sky, you put those in, and the water was coming in ripples this way, see? So each one of those represents a ripple coming towards you. And then the very last of all, when the boats come in, you've got the reflection of the boats. So now you put the reflections of the boats in like this, and put the reflections of their masts in. So it's in sort of, just like it would be in real life, it's like 3 levels, you see what I mean? Yeah? Does that sound too difficult? No? No? Easy, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's it for me, Bert.
Yep, well,
Wow,
here we go. Now
you
we
have
can
made a
actually...
nice job.
Well, and you.
Now look at the difference. This couldn't possibly be mine, this couldn't possibly be yours.
That's right.
Isn't
That's
that true?
right. Absolutely.
But that's a beautiful job you've done there. And somebody walking into a gallery and seeing these will know that's yours.
That's right.
Because it's got your personality in it, and they'll know this is mine because, again, it's a recognizable thing in the painting that's so crucial.
Well, I think every artist, even though he's painting what's in front of him, an outdoor artist, has got his own sort of handprint, his own technique, own brush strokes, own interpretation, and that over a period of time becomes his recognizable feature.